The UN envoy discusses latest developments of Yemen crisis with the Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait. The joint forces continue their victories in Hodeidah as they liberate new districts in the city. In violation of the international law, Houthis continue recruiting Yemeni children as fighters and send them to war fronts. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rana Swaylam. UN envoy Hans Grundberg met Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait in Cairo. The meeting discussed the importance of restoring stability in Yemen and the whole region. Grundberg and Abul Ghait stressed also that the countries in the region share responsibility to prevent further escalation in Yemen and to help Yemenis in reaching a negotiated political solution. Egypt said it's committed to supporting the unity, sovereignty, and the independence of Yemen. During his meeting with UN envoy to Yemen, the Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry renewed Cairo's refusal to use Yemen as a platform to threaten regional security and navigation in the Red Sea. Shoukry said that the political solution is the best way to reach a comprehensive and sustainable settlement for the crisis. UN envoy to Yemen Hans Grundberg met also in Cairo with the Speaker of Parliament Sheikh Sultan al-Barakani. Al-Barakani pointed out that the Houthi rebels undermined all peace efforts. He stressed the importance of UN's role to take practical measures to end the Houthi coup and to pressure them into peace. For his part, Hans Grundberg indicated that he will make all required efforts during the coming weeks to help resolve the conflict. The military achievements of the joint forces in Hodeidah have been received warmly by local citizens. Innocent people have cheered up. They have got rid of the terrorist militia who has subjected them to different forms of torture and oppression. More on this story is within this report.
People of Hodeidah felt great joy after advances made by the joint forces in the west coast, which took control of strategic areas in Maqbana district of Taiz, districts of Jabal Ras and Al-Jarrahi in Al-Hodeidah. People in liberated areas celebrated the joint forces' achievements and releasing them from the futility of Houthi militia. These celebrations coincided with visits by local authorities and Governor of Hodeidah, Dr. Hassan Tahir, who inspected those areas in Hais and Al-Jarrahi, praising sacrifices of the joint forces and the recent victories achieved south of the Governorate. The Governor of Hodeidah, along with directors of Hais, Mutahhar al-Qadi, Al-Hawak Brigadier Ayyash Ba Haidar, Al-Hadi Ayman Jarmash, Commander of the 1st Brigade Tuhama, Brigadier General Farouk Al-Khawlani, briefed on the progress of the military operations and the process of liberating and restoring the lands that have been under the control of Houthi militia for years. Likewise, Director General of Hodeidah Police, Brigadier Najib Waraq, visited liberated areas north and east of Hais district, including Al-Tulayli, Al-Murair, Al-Qalamah, Al-Hayt and Al-Udayn Junction. Waraq was briefed on the situation in these areas that were liberated during the past few days. He congratulated citizens of these areas. During his visit, he called on humanitarian organizations, especially the Humanitarian Cell of the National Resistance, to provide assistance to the people of the liberated areas.
I salute the joint forces with all their components, the Tuhami and Patriotic Resistance, the Guards of the Republic and the Giant Brigades, all of them fighting united. From here, from Al-Udayn Junction, as well as today, we visited the liberated areas in Murair and Al-Qudha. Houthi militia completely destroyed everything that was built in the previous era. Everyone should return to their homes safely without worrying now. We call on the organizations to intervene quickly in these liberated areas. We came here to restore the homeland from those Houthi militias and build the state again after the rebel militia messed up with everything.
Affiliates of the joint forces expressed their happiness due to the great victories, as confirming their readiness to continue battle and liberate areas under Houthi militia control. Houthi militia continued targeted citizens' homes with Molotovs, planting mines and storing weapons and ammunition in citizens' homes.
People are happy because we are here after we rescued them from the militia. Our morals are high. Thank God.
No to racism. No to sectarianism. No to partisanship. One homeland, one body, one soul. You have to be steadfast in your homes and you are safe. People of Al-Jarrahi and people of Hudaydah. Till Sa'da and Amran, Harf Sufyan and Raida and Houth. All safe.
After the victories and local authorities' inspection tour of the main streets and areas liberated from Houthi militia, they were briefed on the conditions of the citizens and the normalization of the situation. People in those liberated areas have been extremely happy as they were rescued from the barbaric hold of the brutal, heartless rebel militia.
The Houthi militia cut off telecommunications and internet services in Hais and Khoucha, south of Hudaydah. Service cut-off suspended work of foreign exchange companies and humanitarian organizations. The Iranian-backed Houthis control all communication services from the main center in the capital Sana'a. Turning to Al-Dala, where violent clashes erupted between the joint forces and Houthi militia in Murais and Fakhr sector areas. A military source said that about 26 Houthi militants were killed and wounded during the clashes. It added that the joint forces managed to penetrate the Houthi mines and lines. Houthi rebels continue recruiting children and sending them to the war fronts in violation to international conventions. More in the following report.
The Houthi militia continue their crimes in Yemen against children. About 10,000 children have been recruited by Houthis since the beginning of war. Houthis are violating international humanitarian law and the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the Optional Protocol, which criminalizes the recruitment of children under the legal age and sets it at 18 years of age. The director of the Human Rights Office in Sana'a indicated that the Houthi group is taking advantage of schools and summer centers and its influence in educational institutions in the crime of recruiting children and involving them in its military operations. The Yemeni Minister of Information Muammar al-Iryani mentioned the same issue, stressing that Houthis continue to exploit Yemeni children in hostilities. He also added on the occasion of the International Children's Day that Houthis took tens of thousands of children from their homes, neighborhoods, and schools to their camps and washed their minds with their rebellious ideology. The international community, human rights organizations, and international organizations concerned with children's rights have to take urgent action and assume their legal and moral responsibility to bring those involved and criminals to international justice so that the Houthis do not escape punishment.
The coalition announced that it inflicted the Iranian-backed Houthi militia with heavy losses during the past 24 hours. It noted that its air forces carried out 17 airstrikes targeting the terrorist Houthi militia on the fronts of Marib and Bayda governorates. The raids, according to the coalition, destroyed 12 military vehicles and killed 110 Houthi militants. Media sources revealed that Houthis turned Sana'a International Airport into a military training site. According to the sources, the militia conducts military exercise and training on UN planes, aiming at testing a missile air system by experts from the Lebanese Hezbollah. To that end, the coalition said Iran has turned Sana'a Airport into a military base. The coalition spokesman added that the militia uses the airport to launch ballistic missiles and drones in order to target civilians inside Yemen. Noteworthy, Sana'a Airport is open to UN planes for the transportation of relief aid. On the other hand, the coalition said it targeted secret locations of ballistic missiles in Sana'a. The air raid destroyed a large target in the Zahben neighborhood close to Sana'a International Airport. The EU condemned threats against US embassy staff in Sana'a and called on Houthis to leave the embassy and stop arresting of the staff. This came after media sources in Sana'a said Houthi rebels arrested 3 additional employees in the US embassy. Coming next. As the war has entered its 7th year, the suffering of displaced people continue to aggravate.
اضطرينا نحن نغادر من ذي البلاد ونزحنا.
الله يستنقذكم يا محويتني، الله يستنقذ.
Welcome back. UN humanitarians warned that access to life-saving aid has become hard for civilians in Ma'rib. UN Refugee Agency said the front lines of war have become closer to heavily populated areas.
The UN Refugee Agency is gravely concerned about the safety and security of civilians in Yemen's Ma'rib Governorate, including the 1 million people who are estimated to be displaced. As the front lines shift closer to densely populated areas, their lives are in danger and access to humanitarian aid is becoming harder. UNHCR is warning that further escalation of the conflict will only increase the vulnerability of people in Ma'rib, especially those displaced, and is calling for an immediate ceasefire in Yemen. Only a peaceful resolution to the conflict can halt further suffering. Some 40,000 people have been forced to flee in Ma'rib since September, according to interagency data. Ma'rib now hosts half of an estimated 120,000 newly displaced countrywide in 2021. New displacement is exacerbating the existing humanitarian needs. It's drastically increasing the need for shelter, essential household items, water and sanitation, education and protection services, particularly for children.
Houthi rebels are making people's life hard, especially in regard to forced displacement. Those displaced people are suffering more and more because of Houthi shelling and attacks. They keep moving from one place to another in order to save their lives from the Houthi hell. More details are in the following report.
Yemen continues to face an unrelenting conflict, triggering what the United Nations describes as the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. Some 80% of the population is estimated to be in need of humanitarian assistance.
We went from Taiz to Zannat to Tharwa and then to Ma'ri. The humanitarian organizations gave us cartoons, tuna and tents. All this was caused by the Houthis who destroyed our houses. Everything was lost. They shelled on us and then we escaped.
Food security and health indicators are among the lowest worldwide. With more than 4 million forcibly displaced people as of the end of 2020, Yemen had the fourth largest internally displaced population due to conflict.
We escaped Al Juba. There is huge pressure on local authorities, big numbers of population. Sometimes they come to inspect people and some other times they do not. They are under pressure. Houthis have forced innocent people to flee. They bombed their houses. Now they don't know where to live. They came to this land. They are not relieved, but they are forced to live here.
Active hostilities and explosive hazards endanger civilians and cause widespread damage to homes and public infrastructure, especially hospitals and schools. The number of displaced people doubles and their needs increase in light of insufficient relief aids. Displacement waves are moving from one camp to another in search for safety as a result of the militia targeting them with missiles. As to local authorities and humanitarian organizations, all they can do is to open new camps for new waves of displaced.
food supplies witnessed daily increase in their prices in the capital Sana'a. This made it hard for people to cope with the basic needs of their families, especially when they have been without salaries for more than 5 years. More on this story is in the following report.
Yemen remains one of the world's most concerning humanitarian crises. Protracted conflict and basic public services, coupled with economic collapse and pre-existing structural issues, such as widespread poverty, expose large segments of the Yemeni population to unprecedented levels of food insecurity, malnutrition, and disease. The economic policies of the Houthis have made the deteriorating humanitarian and economic situation worse, as they have led to a surge in food prices. The Houthis imposed additional tax and custom duties of up to 50% on important goods that enter the country through ports controlled by the legitimate government. This newly established authority serves as a revenue stream for the militia, knowing that merchants pass these costs on to the customer through increased prices. This situation has led to a halt in the import of oil derivatives through Al Hodeidah port, which led to an increase in their prices on the black market and consequently to an increase in the cost of transporting food supplies. According to the World Food Programme, food prices have increased by up to 200% from pre-war levels. The surge in food prices brings renewed suffering to the Yemeni civilians. The policies of the Iran-backed Houthis who control Sana'a have made the humanitarian and economic situation much worse. Some Yemeni families have to camp out on the streets as they struggle to make ends meet amid the steep rise in prices and increasing poverty rate. The rise in food prices in Sana'a exposes the lie that the militia controls the exchange rates in the areas under its control. Yemen is living on the brink of famine. An estimated 16.2 million people, which represent 45% of Yemen's population, are acutely food insecure even with the presence of food assistance. The curtailment of the business sector, coupled with the suspension of payment of salaries, increased the suffering of Yemeni people. Yemeni families spread out on the sidewalk in Sana'a, where many are forced to resort to begging to feed their children. As long as the war continues and the Houthi rebels are in rule, they will keep getting worse.
The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 6 new cases of the COVID-19 in 3 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 4 cases were recorded in Socotra, 1 in Aden and 1 in Shabwa. Also 3 deaths was recorded and 14 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 9,967, including 1,942 deaths and 6,781 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. The UN envoy discusses latest development of Yemen crisis with the Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait. The joint forces continue their victories in Hodeidah as they liberate new districts in the city. In violation of the international law, Houthis continue recruiting Yemeni children as fighters and send them to war fronts. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.